Alright, so imagine this for a moment, about a series for a manga that we have no clue about. And just for that moment, we begin in a world of nations, where in each nation, there are these group of people called ninjas. And they wage war against one another. They have these abilities called jutsu. There are 3 types of jutsus that are used, and the ninjas use them in battle to fight each other to obtain great powers that we've never seen before. There are also forbidden jutsus that are not to be used by anyone in the village for any reason. In each village, there are these ranking systems for the ninjas to climb up the ninja ladder till they eventually become great enough to become the ninja president. The ninjas are an intense battle with a beast with a certain number of tails that they must fight, called the 9-tailed fox. And this right here is the weakness with a lot of beginning mangaka. And that also brings me to today's video topic about how I should start my manga. But before we get into this video, if you're new, I'm gonna need you to check out my manga note, the one shot I entered in the Shonen Jump Tezuka contest. If you love the cover, you'll love the story. Also, if you're new, don't hesitate to hit that subscribe button, click that like button, and ring that bell for notifications when you want to hear things that I have to say. Now let's get into it. So hey there everyone, it's your boy Vandal, and today I'm kicking off a new manga tips series, going over how to make manga from start to finish. But I want to start with this premise overall. You can start manga any way that you want to. This is just a guide of the way I do it, and I think it's the most helpful way to get people to read your manga. Now let me explain what the earlier post was about. I'm gonna need you guys to watch through to the end though, because the last part is going to elevate your manga game from just a mere novice to a better novice. I know, stay tuned. Now, in writing, what I did in the beginning intro was called, for lack of a better word, an exposition dump. I told you everything about the world, how things function, details of the power system, and even the bad villain. And if you all know the show that I was talking about, it was Naruto. We all know Naruto. However, you can do this with just about any show. Just rattle on about the world and the way that it works. This information all before we actually start the story might be great for some, but horrible to many, and here's why. If we went back to Naruto's inception in the early 2000s, no one cared about it. No one even knew what Naruto really was. They just knew it was some boy in an orange jumpsuit running around pretending to be a ninja. You know, all that good stuff. But if you started the story with all those heavy details like I did in the beginning, I promise you we would not have Boruto. But would that be such a bad thing? That said, what's the problem with intense exposition dumps at the start of your manga? The problem with that is that you're just telling me everything that's in the story instead of showing me all the things that are important, and the key thing right here is why those things you're telling me also matter. Now, why do jutsus matter? Why does the 9-tailed fox matter? And that's what the whole beginning part is about. We don't understand why any of that stuff matters. It sounds cool, it sounds great for world building, but why does it matter? Manga being a visual medium is important because that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to show our art and give meaning to what we want to introduce to our reader. It's like being on a dating site and the person you met just tells you all the things they can do. They can do A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and it sounds great because they just told you it, but you haven't actually seen any of the things that they can even do. And that's not even the worst part, because why does it even matter what they tell you that they can do when we haven't even taken the time to get to know who they are or why they're able to do the things they're able to do or how they're able to do the things they're able to do? We don't really know this person. And this is what I'm trying to get at. This is trying to get to know what a character is or who a character is. Think of this part as a character date. Hopefully that actually made any type of sense. And another point I want to add on here is that exposition isn't all bad, but it's not something that needs so much detail in the beginning of your story. What we need to start our story with is building our characters, but how exactly do we build up our characters? Well, great question. We need to start at ground zero. Before we get to the ninjas, the battles, and the power systems, we need to ask ourselves, why am I telling this story? And again, why does it matter? What do I want the reader to take away from this story? We have to first gather our idea. What is the main idea of our story? I've said this in another video, but repetition is good for this sort of thing. The problem with the exposition dump we talked about earlier is the pitfall of many writers, and they get wrapped up in and this is myself included, basically all the cool stuff, the fights, the powers, the arcs, what are the things that I'm gonna do, and we can spend years in this place really fleshing it out. But what we need to do is get the main idea to make all of that cool stuff that we really want to show in our story matter. This is the key part. If you take nothing else from this video, remember that we need to make this stuff matter. So what is the main idea you want to tell the world? For example, do you want to tell the world that teamwork is the key to playing basketball? Should hard work overcome talent, and why is that important? Should we empathize with those who are our enemy, and how can we do so, and why is that even important? Okay, if you saw what was on screen just now, it should make sense to you what I'm trying to get at with each of the main ideas of the story. So now that we have our main idea, our thesis, this is the thing that we want to tell the world, that we're burning to tell the world through our story, and everyone can learn something. But the problem is we need someone to be the bearer of our message, and now we're getting deeper. We're getting into the next level of character. Generally, shonen mangas have really big ideas that can apply to many people. However, I think just about any idea can reach anyone if given the right character as the vehicle for that message. For example, like pineapples could be on pizza. You could have a pizza manga, or you could have one that talks about smoothies being like akin to heavenly something. You can pair these crazy metaphors in a wacky way to make an interesting story as well. But someone has to say something about the story, and that's basically what our main character is for. And that's the perfect segue into my next point. Once we have the idea of what we want to say with our story, we need to create a character that will learn the thing that we want the reader to believe in. All right, let me slow down. What did I exactly mean right there? So in creating characters, I think it's best for the character to believe in a lie. What does that mean? We want to start lying to the readers? No. This lie can come from something in their childhood, something in their present life, but it has to be something that they can believe is true about the world, which is the opposite thing that we want to tell our readers. This is all gonna make a whole lot of sense towards the end, so just stick with me here. I know it's a little bit rough. For a better look into this topic, you can check more in depth on this book called Creating Character Arcs by K.M. Weiland. I hope I didn't butcher that. It's a really good book to help you understand how to create really solid characters with personalities and understanding the change through their character arcs. It goes really in depth into a lot of that. The basic idea is starting with the lie. Continuing on with this lie. Have your character believe in that lie till an event in their life twists it to make them question it. And their journey is basically to see that they're wrong about all they believed in the first place, which is the thing that we're trying to tell the audience, but also tell the character so they can also tell the world. It's kind of, I guess, like having someone believe in a cult type thing. I don't know if that's the same, but we're gonna go with that right now. Basically, this is a real gross oversimplification of the process. I'm trying to give you guys like the TLDR or TLDW. In addition to being our messenger, we need them to have a motivation to aspire to through this newfound truth. Once they break through and understand the lie isn't what it's supposed to be and they've got the newfound truth, we need to apply that new truth to their aspirations. So for example, they want to be the best at X, they want to be the best at Y. These are the things that we're going to use that new truth to propel them forward to realize their dreams, because before the lie was holding them back. All right, but to sum all of that up, we need to create a character that is the vehicle of our message and have them be our truth. Basically, they're like a convertee to the new cult. Okay, we're gonna stop with that analogy. Basically, we're gonna create a character, they're gonna be the vehicle of our message, and then we're gonna have them be our truth. But there's something missing, and actually this is the most important part that's gonna drive our story through, and all of the arcs, whether it's a long form story or a short form story, is simply one word: conflict. So I want to take a minute to go over conflict. This is what makes your story interesting. This is not just clear-cut conflict I'm talking about. Not just bad and good. This is something that's a little bit more complicated in your conflict, because I talk about it in another video, but this conflict is something that makes the reader not sure what side of the conflict is right, whether it be bad, whether it be good. It's just two sides who are coming at the same idea from different ways, but one is not necessarily right and the other isn't necessarily wrong. I think that's what makes excellent storytelling, when you have conflict that just doesn't have a clear-cut choice. It's very morally ambiguous. That's where you, the author, have to make artistic or authorly is a word, we're gonna go with that today, thank you, choices to make the reader battle over this conflict. However, the conflict that I'm talking about here is just between two opposing forces. So this is just external conflict, where the main character and the main villain have a conflict, and this main character is having to fight with external forces that are against what the character stands for. That main idea, that truth that we talked about earlier, is basically what they're standing for now. Now, we're also going to talk about that lie from earlier. That lie should be the main driving conflict of the story. Now, this can be imbued in other characters that aren't the main character, and now that our character has seen the light, he can show other people the light and join our crew. Don't forget to subscribe. Should be the main driving conflict for our story, because the lie also going to be something that they're constantly dealing with, because conflict doesn't really end. It just shows up in different ways. Because our lie is an internal conflict, our main character has all of these things going on inside of them that they're still battling with. Because at the end of the day, even though they do believe in the truth, I think some parts of their lie should come through. That'll make it more compelling. It'll make it not as just like, oh, I believe this now, because no one ever believes anything instantaneously. It takes time. Or sometimes they do believe it in one shot after they see some miracles. This will make the story even more interesting to the reader. I think an amazing conflict that shows itself, if we had an example, would be the show Avatar: The Last Airbender. I love talking about this show. I know Avatar again, right? But it has a conflict that is greatest with everyone's favorite character, Zuko. And I think it's the end of book 2. Quote me, check me in the comments if I'm wrong. Zuko's internal conflict is to help the Avatar, or capture him, or take him back to his father for his honor. And this is where he has like a choice of sorts. And it comes time for him to make that decision. And he decides to give up chasing the Avatar and live a good life. He actually just chills for a minute. But spoilers, he decides to actually go with the path when he's presented again with the question whether to capture the Avatar or live a good life, and he chooses that he wants his father's honor, and we watch how that just makes him crumble and eat away at him as he gets the things that he wants. But after he gets what he wants, he finds out that's not what he really wanted in the first place. It's so beautiful to watch. I talked about conflict in my heroes and villains video, but I'll repeat it if you need to figure out conflict in its external form and its internal form. What goes on inside people is way more interesting, hence the internal conflict, and we see how it affects them during the course of their journey. When done well, this makes for a great story. Now, how do we use the conflict to drive the story? Most of you right now know the best way to have your story formatted is in the 3-act structure. Using the conflict, whether internal or external, is what we just talked about. But let's get into this structure using this template using conflict. If you look in the comment section, there will be a link to a template. Take a minute to pause this video, and when you are ready, unpause this video and we will go over it together, y'all. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And the pause is over? Okay, good. You got it. Now let's delve deeper. This template that I got from Abby Edmonds, she's another content creator on YouTube. She has a great channel on writing novels, but this will work just as great for manga as it would for writing novels. So what I want to go through is this process of how I filled out each section and what I used it for, and explaining a little bit about each. This is what was used in the creation of the story Besiege, using Bomo, the main protagonist, for this conflict. So let's dive in. Alright, so this is that section that I was talking about earlier. This is the part that we've all been waiting for, and this is how we're going to set up our story. So if you have your template open, this is our 3-act structure, and we're going to start with Act 1, the hook. This is the introduction to our main character's inner conflict. We talked about it at length earlier and in other videos, but we're going to talk about it again. And the hook is the internal conflict, which is simple: desire versus fear. Despite popular belief, the internal conflict starts long before the inciting incident shows up to destroy our main character's life. In fact, that conflict has been boiling just below the surface this whole time. Otherwise, your inciting incident wouldn't matter at all. See, external conflict is the plot, all about what happens, but the internal conflict, the story, is all about why it matters. You need to ask yourself at this point, what does my main character think will bring them true happiness or contentment, and how is their fear stopping them from going after it? What I put for Bomo was that he wanted to graduate and finish school because it was a promise he made to his mother before her death. His fear is that the kids at his school will only see him as a besieger and an evil, angry monster and bully him for it. But he also hates all the kids at school for it because of this. So basically, he wants to graduate school, but to graduate school, he needs to avoid kids, but the kids want to bother him because they know that he's someone who can get angry. That's the basis of what the conflict is going on inside of him. Now we have our inciting incident, where the main character is pushed outside of their comfort zone. This is the event that really sets your story in motion. Your inciting incident doesn't have to be some big, epic, crazy call to adventure like we've seen in so many shonen before us. It just has to be something that pushes the main character outside of their comfort zone. A conflict surfaces something the main character has to face head on. It's really as simple as that. Don't overcomplicate it as many writers often do. If you know why the inciting incident matters to your main character and you let them react to it as a normal anime shonen protagonist would, as we know in all parameters, running for cover because of fear like Usopp, congratulations, you've nailed it. Now ask yourself at this point, why does the inciting incident matter to the main character and how does it push them out of their comfort zone? So basically, Bomo wants to graduate, and if he causes another huge incident at school, he won't be allowed to graduate and he'll break his promise to his mother. Also, the main character needs to create some art piece for the school's upcoming festival. That's Bomo. So he has to navigate his anger and have no incident before the school festival happens. On top of that, he needs to find a school club to join to meet his graduation requirements, which is a whole mixed bag in and of itself. So what's next? We have the build-up, facing the consequences of what has happened at the beginning. So the main character is going to have to face this thing head on. The reader can now see what the main character's internal struggle really is and how that whole situation is going to be especially tricky for them to navigate. What internal conflict, you're going to ask yourself, is going to arise from my main character in the wake of the inciting incident? So for me, I put that how is Bomo going to control his anger for the remaining weeks till the festival, because all the students will try to make him angry so he can explode. Literally. There'll be more context in the story, but just remember, this part is just to help give you like a rough draft of your story, and we're gonna go in the next video in building that up. We'll talk about that towards the end. So now we have the first plot point. The main character makes a decision which determines what happens next. Your main character is a conflicted person, torn between fear and desire. So when the inciting incident steps in and shoves them outside of their comfort zone, their fear takes over and they respond all wrong, which sets up more obstacles for the rest of your story. So how is my main character going to react? This is what you're asking yourself, given their fear or misbelief about the world. Don't forget that lie. That's what we talked about in the beginning, that conflict part, very important. What decision are they going to make now to avoid the most pain in their life and get what they want while steering clear of the thing that they are afraid of? So, unsure what to do, Bomo was tested by one of the students who calls him a name. There's like the slur that I have in the story, and he gets called that. So the student counselor shows up to calm him down and to find a solution to his problem, which is he wants to graduate, but he's not sure how to navigate his feelings. So he's lost about how he will have a group of friends, and talking to the counselor didn't help much with his problem. However, Bomo gets an offer made to him by the paranormal club, and he has to see if he'll meet with them by the end of school, as they offered him a spot in their club. And now we have the first pinch point, which is the closing of our first act, which is opposition or the antagonistic force looms in the distance. You can have a pinch point even if you don't have a villain character in your story. It doesn't have to be a villain, it doesn't have to be a person, it just has to be something that is ultimately going to come back to haunt the main character later. It can even be in the main character's misbelief. It honestly could be anything. It doesn't really have to be the embodiment of something, it can just be the fear itself, like maybe water or taking a bath or pineapples on pizza. I love pineapples on pizza. So ask yourself, what is the opposition or antagonistic force my main character is going to have to face head on later? How can I show the reader that it is already looming in the distance? So it's kind of like foreshadowing. And what I did here is that I showed a creature that shows up, I called it the boogeyman, and it takes away the student that Bomo was just fighting with in the hallway before the counselor showed up. It'll make a lot more sense once we get to the later parts of this segment. For brevity's sake, the student's name was Zeus. That's what he becomes later. And now we have Act 2. This is the meat of your story. If you were thinking of Acts 1, 2, and 3, 1 and 3 would maybe be the buns, and Act 2 is definitely where you just bite all in. I love these food metaphors I come up with. Anyways, this is the pre-midpoint reactionary hero. Your main character pursues their fear-based goal. Thanks to the decision your main character made at the end of Act 1, which we haven't really clarified, they are now a person with a plan, and they have a goal that they are actively pursuing. Essentially, they're going after the thing that they think will make them happy while still steering clear of the thing that they're afraid of. Whether running away from something or running to something, their motivation is the same. Avoid as much pain as possible and get to the finish line where happiness awaits. But there's no shortcuts, my friend. So ask yourself, how is the main character going to execute their plan, achieve their goal, and avoid their fear all at the same time? It's a lot. What is their step-by-step plan for making this happen, even if they don't know every step themselves? Like we talked about before, Bomo's decision now was that I said he was going to join the paranormal crew and learn about the different mythical beasts from the club members. The paranormal club needs to find a monster or they're gonna disband. Bomo doesn't really believe in their made-up monsters, which doesn't make sense for this world later on. It'll make more sense in some later videos in the series, but you'll see. And leaves them saying he doesn't think he wants to join and he has to think up some artwork for the festival. He's told about the boogeyman as it might be around campus and to look out for it. So we're setting up some other things for later. So now we're at the game-changing midpoint, the plot twist. A game-changing midpoint doesn't have to be some epic, crazy twist of fate. The only thing a game-changing midpoint has to do is surprise the main character and shift their goal. Bonus if you can surprise the reader at the same time. So ask yourself, what unexpected thing is going to upend my main character's plan and entire life? Why does it matter to the main character given their desire and fear? And how is it going to change the game for my main character? Now, Bomo returns to school the next day and the friends of Zeus push him up against the lockers, and this really angers him, triggers his powers to activate, because he doesn't understand why they're doing this to him. They blame him for the disappearance of their friend Zeus. Then during the commotion, while they're about to fight, Bomo notices the little monster and he's able to calm down because he was told about it before. He's also now rescued by the class president who de-escalates the whole problem between these two. Now we're at the post-midpoint action hero. The main character approaches their goal from a different angle. Figure out how your main character is going to handle the plot twist. It's sort of like another inciting incident, shoving them outside their comfort zone and presenting a new unexpected challenge. Give your main character a plan going forward, a sense of where this is going. Your readers want to know what's going to happen next because they can foresee what might happen. And ask yourself, what is the main character's new plan going to be based on the game-changing midpoint, and what does it mean to them? How does my main character think their new plan is actually going to work to bring them to their goal while still avoiding their fear? So basically, he returns to the club and he says he's found a monster, and if they can find the monster, the club will be spared from having to disband, and this will also prove to everyone that he's actually not such a bad person. However, more kids go missing and there are only a few kids left at school, and they being the club, has identified the monster and plan to catch it. The club notices that it likes to go after kids who are generally alone. Second pinch point, right before the end. So we're really building up that tension here. So second pinch point, the opposition or antagonistic force gets closer. Remember, your opposition doesn't have to be an actual villain or person again. It can be the main character's disbelief, always looming in the background, whatever that looks like to you. Art's one of those things that's really open-ended, so you have a lot of freedom in thinking about how to really strategize these points. Getting ready to attack them come Act 3. Whatever your major opposition is, your main character is going to have to face off with that climax of your story. That's what you want to give the reader a taste of at this story beat. How can I show the opposition or antagonistic force is getting closer to disrupting the main character's life? So we can also show that the kids who are about to fight Bomo for protecting Zeus go missing by the boogeyman, and we see that the monster is gaining strength. Trust me, y'all, this will all make sense very soon. Now, Act 3, we're getting to the good stuff. This is like the part of your burger that you bite into that's like that really juicy end. The supposed victory. The main character thinks they have overcome their fears and everything. Making progress with their new and improved plan, the character feels confident that they will be victorious, or perhaps that they've already overcome the smallest of the challenges and feel pretty good about their plan. Little did they know that disaster is on its way. Note, this plot point is optional, but awesome. So ask yourself, why does the main character think they're gonna win? Because you know they're gonna lose. They have to take an L. What's happening to them to feel so close to achieving their goal and finding happiness at last? So Bomo was thinking that he's conquered his fear and he chooses to be the bait for the plan so they can catch the boogeyman. Oh my god, bars, and I got it on the first try. Let's go. So however, the day or the time before they're gonna go check the plan, Bomo notices the art piece that he made for the festival of his mom is torn up and things get bad. Disaster is the next point. Everything goes wrong. Bring your main character to their knees. Make that main character cry. So by rooting the disaster in their greatest fear and misbelief, it might be something that's terrible for anyone to experience, but go beyond that. Dig deeper, y'all. Plus ultra that. And make it something especially bad for your main character because of their fear and misbelief. Ask yourself, what does this disaster specifically mean to the main character? How does it force them to realize that they're the one to blame for this crisis? How does it completely disarm them and make them face off with their fear and misbelief? And tell you this part is hard, man. It takes a lot of thinking, but you got this. However, Bomo is shattered and his powers begin to flare up. It's made worse when the boogeyman takes the form of his abusive father. And at this point, Bomo can't handle it. The dark moment. We all know what this moment is. We have seen this many times, my shonen brethren. We have seen what happens when the character goes in their dark moment. We all know what it looks like, and this is the most fun part for a lot of us. But we have to make this part meaningful, not just cool, also meaningful. So the main character is hopeless. It's always darkest before the dawn. Your main character needs a rock bottom moment in order to have that aha moment. You know that moment where Goku goes Super Saiyan, where Naruto gets his demon tails, where any main character in a shonen show has dug deep and some really wild stuff happens. So we all know what that looks like, right? Right. And that's what makes the revelation so satisfying. But right now, in the wake of your disaster, the main character is feeling utterly and completely broken, confused, lost, disappointed, disillusioned, whatever you want to call it. They are sad. He sees his father, and then memories flood to him, and then he is destroyed, metaphorically, not literally. And his besieger powers begin to unleash. And now, the aha moment. And all characters go through this, because at this point, right, in the dark moment, I would flesh this a little bit more out later. There'll be like some type of actual fight or some type of just like, there's a little gap missing in between this dark moment and the aha moment, because it won't literally go to that moment. And I'll explain that in the next video about when we're translating this into an actual script. The aha moment. This is the biggest pivotal moment in your whole story. After your main character has been brought to their knees by the disaster, they have a revelation, the aha moment. They can suddenly see how their fear and misbelief has led them to make the wrong decisions about everything. They realize how wrong they were, but most importantly, they see that they'll have to overcome their fear and make this right decision in order to achieve their goal, true happiness. Now ask yourself here, how is my main character going to overcome their fear and continue to the climax, therefore developing as a character? What lesson, so important, are they going to learn and simultaneously teach the audience? So he remembers the words of the people who were there for him, his principal, his social worker. I think I called him a counselor in the beginning. I don't know, I changed words. And his friends at the club. They're not really friends yet, but we're just gonna put that there for brevity's sake. Anyways, each of them cared for him, and even his mother did that. And that's what he learns, that people do care for him, and he is more than just a besieger, and his rage is channeled into something else at this moment. The Climactic Confrontation. The main character faces their biggest challenge yet. This is the moment everyone has been waiting for, where the main character is going to face their most difficult challenge yet. It is a true test of their character, and how to respond to the confrontation is the proof that they've transformed as a result of the journey. So your main character has already won the internal battle in their aha moment. But now it's time for them to win the external battle, which of course will force them to face off with their greatest fears. How does my main character prove their transformation? By crushing their misbelief and facing their greatest fear with courage. So he walks up to the boogeyman. Bomo was so scared, and all he says is peace. I guess this is like something I wanted to talk about later. His power shifts off and his friends capture the boogeyman. He uses the power to restore the gym for the festival, and all the kids that went missing reappear. Victory! The main character overcomes. Sometimes you don't even have to have victory. Sometimes they can lose. This part I think can vary, but we're gonna go with victory for right now. And because victory and loss can teach you two things. Victory, the main character overcomes. This doesn't necessarily mean the main character wins the external battle or that things turn out exactly as they hoped, but the main character does experience a personal victory because they overcome their fear and destroyed their misbelief. Remember that lie we talked about before? This is where you overcome it. And here's the rule of thumb. If your reader doesn't know how your character has transformed as a result of their journey, you need to rewrite your story until they do. That's really important because if your reader didn't get it, they missed the point or you weren't clear enough. So you have to make it clear enough so that anyone reading it gets it and not too hand-fisted. There's like a nice leveling off there. Ask yourself, how has my main character changed as a result of their journey? So Bomo's name is cleared, that's what I put, and his anger is way better than it was before. Just like in the beginning, a kid tests him by shoving him, but he keeps on moving on to his friends, and he notices the people who are there for them and the people who he can trust and create bonds with. Basically my answer. And then we end up with the resolution, which is wrapping up loose ends. And in this part, this is where, you know, all the loose ends are tied up. The reader should be left with no missing information. That depends. This is where you can open it up if you have a long form story or if you're doing a short story. It depends on what kind of story structure you're making. So at this point, you could probably leave it a little bit open-ended if you're doing a different type of story. Just gonna put that there. If your story is a part of a series, then you may want to end on a cliffhanger by swapping out victory with another story beat or another plot twist, which is important. If the story is a standalone, make sure that the reader's questions are answered when they reach the final page, or you can leave them reading for more. I like making one-shots, and that's also the point of it. Think of it as like a teaser as well. Basically what I put is he ends up with the paranormal club and they go on more adventures to find the mythical beasts. And that's a wrap, y'all. And that's it, y'all. That's basically the 3-act structure in a nutshell, and we have our outline. In the next video, I'm gonna go a bit more into character creation before we actually get into making the script, because I believe it's good to imagine your characters before you start writing for them, so when you see them in your head, it makes things a lot easier. So that's the next video that we're gonna go into when I come back eventually. But hopefully this document made things a whole lot easier for you in your manga creating process, so you can easily make stories that are way more interesting and compelling to read for all those people that you want to read. And another little tidbit of advice for this document, you can also use this for other characters. Maybe they're not so much the main characters, they're side characters, but they're just as important. And if you want them to be just as interesting, you can give them these motivations and these conflicts that they're dealing with and have them a bit watered down. But since they wouldn't be the focus of the story, they're good to keep in line so you can have good characters created and using some of the resources we talked about earlier. And just a note, I used this document for like a short story format. That's what I'm really on right now. So if you wanted to like make a long running story, leave a comment down below. Let me know if you want to learn how to expand upon that idea, because I definitely have a lot of ways to do that, and creating arcs and how they should work into the overall narrative. I've done that part before, but I'm working more now on building up those characters. For now, it seems that we're at the end of our first steps in our creation of making manga process. Great, y'all, we did it. So if you guys have any questions about this first step, let me know in the comment section. Tell me what you thought about the template. Was it helpful? Was it not? Did I just talk a lot, a whole lot of nothing? Was it all a bunch of philosophical mumbo jumbo that made no sense to you? Let me know if I was wrong, and let me know if my outline was kind of whack. I let this story out to the world because it's one of my projects that I'm just working on now. If you steal it, I will find you. But, you know, yeah. But yeah, just let me know about that in the comment section down below. If anything was helpful in speeding up your projects, productions, give it a like, you know, share it with those that also want to make manga, who are thinking about, oh, how should I start? Oh, how can I improve this? Or you're on another iterative process. I like vocabulary. You know, this is going to be our little mantra at the end. Start making manga now. But yeah, guys, if you made it to the end of this video, you are amazing, and I want to give you a big thanks again. Also, don't forget to subscribe if you haven't, or hitting that like button if you loved this video, and clicking that bell for notifications when you want to hear things that I have to say. But also, don't forget to check out my manga note that I made. You can read it in the link down below as well. I think I'm going to put it, I don't know if you can put 2 in the bottom, but I'm going to put it there anyways. Read it in the link down below. All right, y'all, I'll catch y'all in the next one. Peace. Bye.